Hello, my name is Jessica Stauffer, and this is my educational philosophy. The first thing I wanted to start with would be self-reflection. As far as self-reflection goes, a couple things that this course has allowed me to see is that I would like to be able to provide more feedback to my students. I currently work as a elementary school volunteer in a fourth grade classroom. I felt through my learning in this class that it's important for my students to receive prompt feedback and just more substantial feedback than what I'm giving. Currently, I try to provide my students with encouragement, but I feel that I could provide them with solid feedback as to what they're doing well, some things they need to improve on. For example, I can provide 3 positives for each negative that I have to say. Another thing that I would like to work with is to provide my students with alternative ways to express their knowledge. Right now, I'm currently just giving mainly one way to assess how they are learning. What I could do is I could try to provide some of my students with other alternatives. For example, if they can express their knowledge in writing, have them write out their answers for me in a paper or something along those lines. If they're better at expressing verbally, I can just have my students verbally tell me what they have to say as opposed to writing it out. And then another thing that I would like to work on is also to provide my students with options and choices. For example, the book stated that by giving your students more choices and more control over what they're learning, it's going to increase their motivation to want to learn and to participate. I think if I give my students alternatives, I may be able to increase their motivation, not only their motivation, but give them the opportunity to better assess and express their own learning. And then I'm going to move on now to memory. As a volunteer, some of the things that I work with my students on in regards to memory would be chunking. We work on chunking in our spelling exercises by having my students break up the words. For example, if the word is railroad, we would break it into 2 separate parts, the first being rail and the second being road. And we work on our spelling that way, and then we can just kind of later combine those two together. We say, okay, I know how to spell rail and I know how to spell road, so I can put those two together and then come up with the word railroad. And another thing that I work with is maintenance rehearsal with my students. What we do for this is we practice that spelling word. We practice writing it out over and over again until it kind of embeds itself into our memory. The next thing I wanted to talk about would be metacognition. What metacognition is basically what students know about their own thinking and their ability to regulate. What I would like to do with this is to work with my students on what ways that learning is best for them. My students are going to know which ways they learn best. For example, if they know that they are better at learning through verbal as opposed to, I don't know, say visually, then I could work on providing them with more auditory prompts and things like that, as opposed to simply having them read material. The next thing that I wanted to discuss would be motivation. The book talks about that there are intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. I'd like to move a little bit away from the extrinsic motivation where I'm providing my students with rewards and candies for doing a great job. I want my students to be motivated and want to learn on their own without receiving these rewards. So that's one thing that I really want to work on when I go fall, is to find ways to intrinsically motivate my students. The next thing that I would like to discuss would be beliefs about self. For this, I would like to work with my students on goal setting. I want to provide my students with goals that they can work towards. I'd like to start out first with short-term goals because those can easily be achieved in a short amount of time, and it's going to not only increase their confidence but increase their motivation to want to work towards those long-term goals. And I also want to work with my students on their self-efficacy. efficacy. Sorry, I have trouble saying that word. And by working with my students on this, it can help boost their confidence. And that's the main thing that I really want to help increase is my students' confidence. If they're feeling confident about the subject, they're going to be more willing to try, they're going to be more willing to participate and express their own ideas. And I really think that will improve my students' performance and their willingness to want to be an active part of their learning. As far as constructivism goes, I have the belief that students are responsible for their own learning. I believe that there are a lot of barriers that come with education, but I feel that you're responsible for how you overcome those barriers. Despite what those barriers are, I do believe you can overcome those things, and the key is that you need to take responsibility for your own actions. You can say, yes, this situation isn't good, but it's what I do about it that matters. I can put forth an effort and try. What I take out of learning is what I make of it. And that's kind of the classroom that I want to be able to create and something I want to work with my students about. And as far as assessment goes, my classroom teacher that I volunteer with provides quizzes and things like that. But for something for myself as a volunteer that I would like to do to assess students' learning is I would like to maybe create some surveys after we complete an assignment or something that we're working on together. I want to assess whether or not they felt that that was beneficial or how they feel it could have been beneficial if it wasn't. I'd like to receive their feedback and their engagement to better prepare myself as a volunteer to better meet their needs and to increase their learning potential. And then the course impact for me. This course has kind of impacted me in a variety of ways. It's allowed me the ability to think about things that I wasn't thinking about prior. It's allowed me the ability to see areas that I need to improve on and ways that I can improve on those things. And most importantly, I think that this course has really provided me with an outlet to learn from others. I was able to learn from my classmates about what strategies they were using and how it has worked for them. And I was able to sit there and think, okay, maybe this would work for me if I tried it in this manner. So I really want to go back in the fall and take what I've learned from this course and apply it as a volunteer and see if I can really help my students with that. Thank you so much for listening.